Welcome in, watching the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa and across Canada. And as we look potentially at seeing a convoy in the United States, I've heard it's rolling. We'll see. And of course, the convoy movement has spanned the globe. Millions upon millions are watching with great interest and believing that this convoy that began in Canada has shook the world. And what I mean by that, by shook the world, it has inspired and awakened people into actually standing up, to just saying, we're done with this. All right, so I'm gonna pop in here and look at a couple pieces, because apparently in the next few hours, maybe very, very soon, we'll see that Prime Minister Trudeau would like to engage the Emergency Powers Act, which is something that has never been done before in Canada, in response to what? Let's click on over and see what in response to this not peaceful protest. All right, we're going to transition over. Let's take a look at the great danger that exists in Canada, that the Prime Minister must. We'll talk about what the Emergency Powers Act would allow him to do and how he would have to, what he would have to present in order to move it forward, to get it enacted. All right, here is the great threat to Trudeau. Maybe he's not familiar with the tune. That, and if you've been watching the footage, as I have, as millions upon millions have, I think we're all baffled as to what in the world he must be thinking to be pursuing the Emergency Powers Act, never done before in Canada's history. It used to be the War Act, and so effectively it's been renamed back, I think it was the 70s, 80s, so I could look. In fact, I'll read it here in a moment, I believe. Effectively, he's saying Canada is at war, and with whom? The folks in the last picture there, the citizens of Canada. Let's switch over and see what the BBC has to say about Trudeau's current chosen path. Canada, trucker protest. What powers will Emergencies Act give Trudeau? All right, let's see. Prime Minister Trudeau has invoked never used Emergencies Act to give his government enhanced authority for 30 days, including the power to prohibit public assembly, travel, and the use of specific property. The move comes amid weeks of disruptive and expensive demonstrations against COVID-19 restrictions. Interesting. The money aspect. We've been talking about this for quite a bit. It's not actually much to do. I mean, for 2 years, Trudeau shut down Canada, and for 2 years, the global leaders have shut down their nations and cities and states. But all of a sudden, it's gotten expensive. Interesting. And so now we move in with force. You've seen, I hope you have seen, well, it's certainly escalated, and it's not on the behalf of the people. The people are still there throwing parties, singing the national anthem, and respectfully, and I've just been blown away at the restraint and the peaceful nature that Canadians have modeled for the world. Thank you, Canadians. To think, well, all right, we'll continue on. Let's see, yada yada. Yes, the bridge in Windsor, and it's very troubling for Ford and for Trudeau. What is the Emergencies Act? All right, 1988 replaces. Let's see, I think that's a little further down. So the situation must meet a high bar, specifically an urgent and critical situation that seriously endangers the lives, health, and safety of Canadians. All right, so we know that it doesn't concern the health or safety of Canadians, because all the data is in and has been in for 2 years. Yeah, we're watching the Super Bowl. Everybody's hanging out, gathering. Of course, I didn't watch the Super Bowl, but people are hanging out in the tens of thousands and have been. Outdoor things are okay. We've looked at the data. Okay, it's not that. It's not health and safety. Seriously endangers the lives. Okay, if you actually think that's the case, they've been there for weeks and weeks. They're sweeping up the streets. They are sweeping the snow, shoveling up the snow. They're looking after people. They're looking after each other. It's been entirely peaceful. And there have been some agitators that have come into it from my guy Trudeau's side. All right, so it doesn't meet those, it would seem. Cabinet may only invoke the legislation if the emergency cannot be addressed by any existing federal law and if it exceeds the capacity of the provinces to handle it effectively. Well, to handle what? A peaceful protest, I guess. There's no need to handle it. They mention, four specific types of emergencies. Public welfare emergency, public order emergency, international emergencies, and war emergencies. All right, so three we can take off. I think we can take three of them right off the table. Public welfare, probably can take that off the table. International emergency, unless you saw that video, the one guy who was supposedly an American in a battle dress uniform and a mask, who was supposedly, stoking violence. Well, if you watch enough videos, you can see the Canadians actually circling this guy up and saying, "This is not what we're doing. You look like an idiot." Anytime somebody shows up to a protest about this whole mask mandates, and they're wearing a mask and they're stoking the fires of it, right? Just like Jan 6th, this is a plant. Okay, so let's see. And that international emergency, yeah, that one guy. And war emergency. Well, no, I think the only threat of physical action is coming from Trudeau and the governmental powers. The peaceful protesters are standing and saying, we don't like this, we don't want this to continue. That's not an act of war. Let's see. All right, potentially public order emergency. Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Instead, the situation must. Once again, the criteria here is strict. Lawful protests do not qualify. And so you can see in what Trudeau is saying that these are not lawful protests. He is building the case, and that's the issue that he will press. So instead, the situation must be considered a threat to the security of Canada, not to Trudeau, not to his opinions or feelings, or not to Ford, to his opinions or feelings, or to the economic structure, but to a threat to the security of Canada. Okay, so that means four possible scenarios: espionage or sabotage. No. Foreign influenced activities. No. Threats or use of acts of serious violence for political, religious, or ideological objectives. No. Disagreements, a protest, maybe, but threat or use or acts of serious violence for those purposes, absolutely not. Serious violence being threatened, absolutely not. And then number 4, covert, unlawful acts intended to undermine or overthrow the constitutionally established government. Well, a couple things that I might say as a non-Canadian. The Canadian Charter has absolutely been chucked out during this process, and so if anybody is doing an unlawful act against the constitutionally established government, that would be the current government. Are there covert unlawful acts intended to undermine or overthrow? No. To protest against, to speak against these actions by the existing government? Sure. Are they covert or unlawful? Absolutely not. So according to the BBC, it is so far unclear which scenario Mr. Trudeau would rely on. And why is it unclear? Because to the observer of the situation, not to the person feeling offended, we're not seeing it. We don't see it. None of these 4 scenarios have been clearly present in Ontario, according to the BBC. So to invoke the law, the Prime Minister must also consult with the premiers, blah, blah, blah. If the act does not pass a vote there, the proclamation will be revoked. So this will go in front of the premiers. And oddly enough, on Monday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who, for me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this isn't helpful, but is he a Muppet? Like lately, when I see him on stage, he never moves. Never moves. And it's like the same shot of him over and over. And I can't tell if he's just a really big, angry Muppet. But apparently, this angry Muppet would support the federal government and, quote, any proposals, any, they would have to bring law and order back to our province. Wow. Once again, Trudeau has said he would do anything and everything. Everything is on the table. And Premier Doug Ford is saying any proposals, anything. He would support anything. Just make these bad Canadians who are speaking their minds and they disagree with us go away. It must be hard to have had 2 years to just snow the public, and all of a sudden they're not taking it anymore. And unfortunately, it's not the people who you want to present. As we might say here, it's the soccer moms and hockey moms. Yeah, it's everybody. More than half of Canada is done with this. And I would assume that it is far more than those who have actually spoken up. Far more. But more than half polled said, no, we're done. And in fact, it looks like Trudeau is done. Doug Ford, yeah, a matter of time. So I guess what I would say to those watching these things unfold: stand firm, control your emotions, remember the law, and remember, if violence were to break out, the government is really good at confronting violence. They want violence. They want an excuse. Do not give them an excuse. Do not resort to violence. Do not break the law. Stand firm, stay peaceful, stay happy. As Jordan Peterson said, have fun. Have fun, do the right thing in this. Remember why you're there, and remember the world is watching.